what's in a car name? When you truly think about it, the substance of the car is what makes the name. It's the greatness of the car that makes you remember its name. The company tries its best to match their product with a good, memorable name, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. This video is about one of those times that it really worked. And the name in question is the Dodge Charger. The Charger gets its name from a horse, one that's trained for battle. If the car was a flop, then this name would have been long forgotten. However, as we all know, the Charger was anything but a flop. The Charger's been in production since 1966, and it's about to enter its 8th generation. It's been a mid-sized two-door, a muscle car, a luxury car, a subcompact, a full-size four-door sedan, and now an EV. It's been killed twice, has been powered by one of the most iconic engines, one of the smallest engines, one of the most powerful engines, an electric motor, and has been offered in rear-wheel, front-wheel, and all-wheel drive configurations. If anything, I'd say that this nameplate has seen it all and done it all, except becoming a pickup, unless you want to count the Dodge Rampage as a sort of pseudo-Charger truck, since the Rampage shared the platform with the Charger of that time. The nucleus of the Charger name began in 1964 with the concept car. At that time, Dodge was already heavily into racing, and competition was fierce. The second generation 426 Hemi was the new race engine for NASCAR, and it seemed just the perfect power plant for Dodge's latest show car. The design studio took a Polara and began to customize it for the show circuit. They customized the bodywork, gave it a full custom interior, cut the roof off, and made it into a true roadster with the Charger name on the B-pillar. The car looked great, but they hit a snag. The new 426 Hemi was being hand-built and was in short supply. The engine they had on hand ended up going to a race team that had recently blew up their Hemi. Not wanting to waste the time of the design studio, they took the 383 that originally came in the Polara and put it back under the hood. The Charger concept hit the show circuit with rumors of the engine being a 426 Wedge instead of a Hemi. The original show car has been found and restored with a Hemi under the hood. In 1964, Pontiac dropped a bomb with the newly released GTO and, as we all know, started the bonfire that became the catalyst for the phenomenon we know as the era of muscle cars. Shortly thereafter, manufacturers were scrambling to create their own muscle car and get it to market. The execs at Dodge not only witnessed the rise of the first muscle car, but American Motors just released their Marlin, a handsome-looking two-door with a sloping fastback roof, and even their sister company Plymouth had the Barracuda. Dodge wanted to get into the game as well, and the Chrysler high-ups gave them the green light, with one caveat: don't build a Dodge version of the Barracuda. So they went back to the drawing board and revived the Charger name for the second concept car, the Charger 2, a mid-sized two-door based on the B-body platform. This concept ultimately led to the 1966 model year Charger that we see today. It was revolutionary in its styling with hideaway headlights, front and rear bucket seats, and a single taillight that covered the full width of the rear. Engine options were all V8s, starting with the 318, then 361, 383, and finishing up with the 426 Hemi, backed by either an automatic or 3 or 4-speed manual transmission. I mentioned earlier that Dodge was heavily into NASCAR racing. I mean, it's why they built the Hemi engine in the first place, and the Charger was born to showcase that engine, so it was only fitting that Dodge campaigned the Charger with a Hemi in Grand National Racing, known today as the NASCAR Cup Series. The Charger proved to be a handful to drive. The body design generated lift at high speeds, making it difficult to keep traction. Dodge designed a small spoiler that helped provide some downforce to the rear tires. It wasn't much, but it was enough to allow David Pearson to win the 1966 NASCAR Grand National Championship, and it also made the Charger the first production vehicle in the U.S. to offer a rear spoiler. The Charger received some minor changes for 1967. The rear bucket seats were retained, but the full-length center console was removed, making it more like a normal interior. Also, the engine choices were revised. The 318 was still available, but the 361 was dropped, making the 383 the upgrade engine. Next in line was the new 440 Magnum engine, with the 426 Hemi still the top choice. With the introduction of the Mustang and the Camaro, sales for the Charger were less than half of what they were last year, and the Hemi Charger was super rare with only 27 units produced. Something needed to be done quickly. Enter Dodge designer Richard Cius. Chrysler execs noticed Cius' sketches that had been made in his spare time. Amidst internal opposition, he was given permission to develop his new double diamond or Coke bottle profile. What followed was the Charger 3, a radical concept that formed the base upon what would become the second generation Charger. The new design was, as we all know, a hit. The 68 Charger was new inside and out, but kept some throwbacks to the first gen, like the full-width front grille and hideaway headlights. The roofline for the 68 stepped away from the fastback design and featured a more stylish B-pillar with a recessed window design. The scallops that resided on the rear quarters of the first generation were flipped around and added to the doors and hood of the second generation car. A racing-inspired quick-fill gas cap gave it an aggressive look, along with a slight lip spoiler in the rear. The full-width rear taillights were replaced with two pairs of round taillights. The new design shot the Charger into instant popularity in the muscle car ranks. The engine options consisted of the 225 cubic inch slant 6, the 318 V8, and 383 with a 2 or 4 barrel carburetor, backed by either a 3-speed automatic, 3 or 4-speed manual transmission. The introduction of the second gen Charger brought a new option, the RT, standing for Road Track. As opposed to Road and Track like you'd want to say, the RT Charger became standard with the 440 big block with the 426 Hemi as an option. On the outside, there weren't many signs, except for some RT emblems and a bumblebee stripe on the hind quarters. The stripe could be deleted at no extra cost. The second generation Charger became the iconic Coke bottle design that classic muscle car enthusiasts all know and love, and it has even been an influence on the 7th generation Charger. Not to mention classic movies like Bullitt, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, and the Fast and Furious franchise, as well as the Dukes of Hazzard, have kept this car in the limelight for decades. The world of racing was another story. On the street, the Charger was a winner. On the track, it was struggling. It was extremely difficult to handle, and traction was a huge problem. Their biggest competition was Ford and Mercury, and they had unleashed a pair of aero warriors on the superspeedways in the form of the Torino Talladega and the Mercury Cyclone. These two threats caused Dodge to do something that was revolutionary. They rented a wind tunnel to find a solution. More on that later. For 1969, the Charger received a minor facelift. Some of the more obvious changes were the front grille was redesigned with a divider down the middle, the rear taillights were elongated for a more aggressive look, and the side markers were changed from round to rectangular lights. A special edition package was added alongside the RT, and the RT Bumblebee stripe was changed from a double stripe to a thicker single stripe with the RT logo etched in the side. The stripe could be deleted, and if so, then an RT emblem was placed where it would have been on the stripe. The powertrain remained virtually the same. Now, back to the wind tunnel. During their research, they realized that the Charger looked fast, but in NASCAR, air management is key, and it was determined the Charger didn't manage the air very well. It wasn't horrible at it. There were just a couple of issues. The first being the recessed front grille, At high speeds, it created turbulence, hindering its ability to split the air. The second issue was the rear window. While the flying buttress look was attractive, it made a low pressure area at the base of the glass, creating lift. Now, we all know how bad turbulence and lift can be on the track, so the engineers at Dodge went to work to address the issues, and here's what they came up with for 1969. The Charger 500. When it comes to air management, the Charger 500 was a vast improvement. Here's what they did. For starters, they addressed the recessed grille area by fitting a coronet grille flush to the opening. Next, they used a fiberglass plug to fill in the cavity in the rear and mounted a new rear window flush to the roofline. Finally, the A-pillars were streamlined with the addition of stainless steel covers. The end result ended up with a Charger that was much more stable and 6 miles per hour faster. However, it still wasn't enough to keep up with Ford and Mercury. Dodge had to pull out all the stops. It was back to the wind tunnel, and what they came up with was pretty radical: the Charger Daytona. The look of the car is, well, polarizing. You don't kinda like a body like this. You either love it or hate it. The Dodge execs weren't concerned about the radical looks. They wanted to win on the track, so it was function over form with the Daytona. Just about every racing sanctioning body has a rule that if a manufacturer wanted to race a vehicle in a particular form, they must make a version of it available to the public, usually 500 units. This is called homologation. So for some, the racing version of the Charger Daytona looked menacing, while the street version looked like overkill, or vice versa. They began with the Charger 500 and everything it is. The leading edge of the fenders were modified to accept the 18-inch aluminum nose cone, complete with hideaway headlights. The front fenders also received a pair of reverse-style scoops that were rumored to be there for wheel clearance, but they were more likely air extractors. The A-pillar covers were retained, as well as the flush-mounted rear glass, and the Daytona was finished off with a 23-inch tall wing in the rear and a race-only 426 Hemi under the hood. Street versions look similar, except that while the street versions were merely street Chargers with Daytona pieces attached, the race cars were purpose-built, making the body lines look more fluid. Backed by the mighty 426 Hemi, the Charger Daytona was a definite performer on the track. The engine of choice for most street Daytonas was the 440, with the optional 426 Hemi. It was the first to officially break the 200-mile-an-hour barrier and won a total of 6 races. Not only that, they set numerous speed records. It was clear that these aero warriors were going to completely change the face of NASCAR racing, possibly pushing the speeds far beyond the capabilities of the drivers and definitely past tire technology. For the 1971 season, NASCAR execs ruled that no aero car could compete with an engine larger than 305 cubic inches, pretty much ruling the car out of competition. For 1970, the Charger received yet another facelift. The splitter in the front grille was removed, and the entire front end was given a wraparound bumper. In the rear, the taillights were slightly enhanced to give it the look of being a full-width light. Trim levels of Base, SE, and RT remained the same. The look for the RT was also mostly the same, with the addition of a pseudo-air extractor that covered the scallops on the doors, emblazoned with an RT emblem. The engine options remained the same with the addition of the 446 pack. The Charger 500 also carried over from '69, but it was in trim only. As good as the last mile of the second generation looked, it was quickly losing sales to the newly introduced pony car, the Dodge Challenger. On the racetrack, the Charger garnered 10 wins, which allowed Bobby Isaacs to capture the Grand National Championship, so not a bad exit for the last year of the model run. '71 called for a new design. This new body style was more rounded and sleeker than the previous generation. A rear spoiler and trapdoor style hood scoop called the Ram Charger were now available as options, and the hideaway headlights were also relegated to being options. The trim levels remained the same. While the 440 Magnum was still available, 71 was the last year for the 440 six-pack as well as the 426 Hemi. New for 1971 was that the Charger line was merged with the Coronet, meaning that they shared similar parts, especially interior components. 71 was also the introduction of the Super B option, an economy performance trim level that lasted only 1 year. For 1972, the manufacturers had been struggling with government regulations for a couple of years now, so the pressure for cleaner emissions and higher fuel economy and lower insurance rates began to take their toll on every vehicle sold in the United States, and the Charger wasn't immune. For starters, the RT option was discontinued and replaced with the Rally option. Compression ratios were lowered across the board, and the engines received hardened exhaust valve seats to help them run on unleaded fuel. The 318 remained the base engine, and the 383 was replaced with a low compression 400. While the 440 was still available, the compression ratio was lowered to accommodate lower grade fuel. The Ramcharger hood scoop was discontinued, and many of the performance gear ratios were discontinued as well. Don't even think about asking for an extra heavy-duty suspension package, because that was also discontinued. The Charger received all new sheet metal for 73, although it looked pretty much the same as the previous 2 years. This new Charger was actually longer, wider, and taller than the previous year. The hideaway headlights were dropped altogether, and the SE models received a custom roof with a triple window design for the quarter glass. The 318 remained the base engine, with the 340 added to the lineup as well as the 360. Next in line was the 400, and finished off with the 440. By 1974, the Charger name had all been but defanged by government regulations and requirements. There weren't many changes for this year, as most of the options remained the same. The biggest change was dropping the 340 from the lineup and replaced with the 364 barrel. By now, the Charger had morphed from a muscle car to a personal luxury car. While the Charger was struggling with its identity on the streets, it knew exactly what it was on the track. Dodge had no plans developing the next generation of Charger for NASCAR because of the overall squareness of the body, which would make it a handful aerodynamically, so the 74 Charger body was allowed to race until 1978 when it was replaced by the Dodge Magnum. It was extremely successful in cup racing, winning the championship in 1971, 72, 74, and 75. Richard Petty was even quoted in saying that it was his favorite car to race because it was so well balanced. Unfortunately for the fourth generation Charger, there's not a whole bunch to talk about performance-wise, but not for lack of trying on Dodge's part. The 1975 Charger shared this platform with the Chrysler Cordoba, Chrysler's personal luxury car and an icon for the 1970s. And the new Charger fell right along those same lines. The only model offered was the SE model, and the engine options were a 318 base engine, a 360, and the 440 big block. 1976 brought about some changes. First, the model options were expanded from 1 to 4. They consisted of the base, Charger Sport, SE, and Daytona. But here's the spin. The base Charger and the Charger Sport were built using the Dodge Coronet, making it look completely different from the SE and Daytona. It was probably a way for Dodge to bring back a little performance to the brand and save some money at the same time. For 77, the base and Sport models were dropped, leaving only the SE and Daytona, which were merely trim levels. By 1978, Charger production had fallen to 2,735 units, and production ended. Now, it's safe to say that the 1970s weren't too kind to the automotive world. We had 2 oil embargoes, a government crackdown on emissions, fuel economy, and safety, and an influx of economy cars from Japan and Europe. The Chrysler Corporation was in particular dire straits at this time. On the verge of bankruptcy, they hired Lee Iacocca in 1979 as president. The first thing he did was go to the United States Congress and secured a loan guarantee to save the company. To rejuvenate the brand, Chrysler had to do a reboot of all their vehicles. As a major cost-saving measure, the K platform was introduced. It was a front-wheel drive platform that utilized a 4-cylinder engine that became the base for all Chrysler's vehicles, with the first being the now famous Aries K car. The K platform wasn't the only one used by Chrysler at the time. There were several. The platform we're concerned with is the L platform, serving as the base for the compact cars, the Dodge Omni and the Plymouth Horizon. For the Omni, their sporty version was known as the Omni 024. In 1981, Dodge gave the 024 a performance upgrade and called it the Charger 2.2. Under the hood, the 1.7-liter transverse-mounted 4-cylinder engine that generated 75 horsepower was upgraded to a 2.2-liter that could grind out 84 horsepower. Other features consisted of a spoiler, special gearing, a hood scoop, and special graphics. This was by far the smallest and least powerful engine that was ever used to power the Charger. However, by the time the 5th generation production ended, the durable 2.2 was producing more than double the horsepower. Remember, we're talking the early 80s here. Detroit was just beginning to retain its footing from the disastrous for the automotive world 1970s. 1982 saw little changes, but 1983 elevated the Charger from being a mere trim level to being its own vehicle. A 1.6-liter engine was added to the lineup, but it was changed mid-year back to a 1.7. However, the big news for 83 was the introduction of the Shelby Charger. Back in 1965, when Iacocca was at Ford, he and Carroll Shelby teamed up to create the most memorable stable of Shelby Mustangs up until 1970. Could they work their magic again? Well, kinda. I mean, Shelby did a lot of work to the stock Charger, and frankly, greatly improved upon the engine performance, the handling, and the design. They started by cleaning up the looks, by removing the gaudy graphics and replacing them with something more serious, yet elegant. It's by far the best looking of the 5th generation Chargers. Under the hood, the compression ratio was raised from 9:1 to 9.6:1. The camshaft timing was advanced, and the electronics were tweaked a bit to boost the horsepower from 94 to 107. It was a good start, with more to come. For 1984, the Charger was given a facelift and upgraded to 4 headlights. However, the Shelby Charger retained the 2 headlight setup. Otherwise, there were no other changes. 1985 saw a few changes once again, but now the 107 horsepower 2.2 that previously powered the Shelby Charger was now an optional engine for the regular Charger. The 85 Shelby Charger brought the introduction of the turbocharged 2.2 Turbo 1 that cranked out a whopping 146 horsepower, well, whopping for a 4-cylinder produced in 1985. Either way, it was a major step up in horsepower. 1986 brought a mandatory center high mounted brake light for all vehicles sold in the US, and a 96 horsepower 2.2-liter engine to the base model as an option, but all else remained the same, even for the Shelbys. 1987 was the last year for the 5th generation Charger. The 2.2 became the only engine for the Charger. Otherwise, it was the end of the run for the Charger. For Shelby, the last run of the Shelby Chargers were equipped with a 175 horsepower Turbo 2 engine and all painted black with no stripes. This final car was called the Shelby GLHS, that Carroll Shelby jokingly said that it stood for "It Goes Like Hell Some More." It's 1999, and the last Charger was built some 12 years ago. No one had heard anything of a new Charger being developed, and then the 1999 Charger RT concept hit the show circuit. It was a sleek, sexy rear-wheel drive 4-door that was an all-new, modern design, yet gave a nod back to the 2nd generation Charger. Powered by a supercharged 4.7-liter engine, it ran on compressed natural gas and produced 325 horsepower. It was an instant hit to enthusiasts, but the extra pair of doors was worrisome. But it didn't matter much. Chrysler and Daimler-Benz merged in 1998, forming Daimler Chrysler, and the new Charger wasn't on the exec's radar screen. The project was killed before it could gain any traction. The world wouldn't see a new Charger for another 7 years. 2004 and 2005 was full of teasers for the new Charger. Everyone speculated what it was going to look like. After all, the concept for 1999 was still fresh in everyone's minds, and Detroit had begun a retro vibe that had started a few years ago. Ford had the Thunderbird, Mustang, and the Ford GT that were definite throwbacks to the classic icons of years past. The Charger RT concept had the second generation Charger all over it. Surely Dodge wasn't going to disappoint, right? Well, you be the judge. It's true that the new Charger was nowhere near what the public expected to see, but could it recapture what had come before? Let's take a look. Based on the LX platform developed during the Daimler Chrysler days, this new four-door sedan, sedan. Yep, it was a sedan. But the 1999 concept was a sedan as well. The new LX platform featured the classic front-engine rear-wheel drive setup with four-wheel independent suspension that had an all-wheel drive configuration as an option. Exterior-wise, it had a good muscular look to it with aggressive styling. The interior was sporty with all of the right gauges, and the seats did a good job of holding you in place and in comfort. Under the hood was what everyone wanted to know about. The base engine was a 250 horsepower, 3.5-liter V6 that was available for the SE and SXT in 2006, with a 190 horsepower, 2.7-liter V6 becoming the engine of choice in 2008 for the SE, only with the SXT retaining the 3.5. Next in line was the 5.7-liter Hemi V8 that was available for the RT and remained the entry-level V8 for the remainder of that generation. Generating 340 horsepower, the Hemi was a formidable engine with tons of potential. In 2009 and 2010, power was bumped up to 368 horsepower. The king of the hill was the SRT8 package, which came equipped with a 6.1-liter Hemi that could churn out a very respectable 425 horsepower. Other trim levels were the Daytona RT that also debuted in 2006. It featured bright, catchy colors with a Daytona stripe package. It shared the 5.7-liter Hemi with the RT. The only other trim level was the Super B package that shared the 6.1-liter Hemi with the SRT8. Both the Daytona and Super B were offered for limited runs in 2008 and 2009. By the end of the 2010 model year, the Charger had a following. Coupled with the Chrysler 300 and Dodge Magnum that was killed after the 2008 model year, quite a community had been built. Also, the introduction of the Challenger in 2008 further enlarged that community, which built the popularity of the Chrysler and Dodge modern-day Hemi cars. The automotive aftermarket further contributed to that of the Charger, 300, Magnum, and Challenger. They were all basically the same platform, so a lot of performance upgrades were shared between the cars. So, in the first 4 years of production, the new Charger had developed and grew as a vehicle. On the track, the Charger did just alright. It won races and has a championship or two under its belt, but NASCAR racing was different. Everything was different, especially the cars. The last time a Charger went NASCAR racing, they raced cars that were still somewhat related to street Chargers. Today, every car is built from scratch, sharing absolutely nothing with a street vehicle. But they were still popular. Brad Keselowski won the championship in 2012 for Penske Racing, driving a Charger, but Chevrolet won the Manufacturers' Championship. Unfortunately, race teams gradually moved over to other brands over the years, making Penske the last team running a Dodge, and they moved to Ford for the 2013 season, forcing Dodge to cease any racing efforts. For the 2011 model year, the LX platform received a major reworking and was dubbed the LD platform. With the new platform came an updated body style. The front fascia was built to be more aggressive looking, and the rear was given a look reminiscent of the 1969-70 Charger. The hood and sides were also given scallops as homage to the same era. Under the hood, the new base engine was the 292 horsepower 3.6-liter Pentastar V6 that powered all SE and SXT models. The RT received a 370 horsepower 5.7-liter Hemi, and the SRT-8 wasn't produced that year, but returned for the 2012 model year. When it did return, it returned with the SRT-8 and SRT-8 Super B, both sporting a 470 horsepower 6.4-liter under the hood. The 2013 and 2014 model years were pretty much the same. All trim levels offered were the same as 2012, with only a few minor changes. For starters, the Pentastar V6 was still available with 292 horsepower, but was given a slight boost up to 300 with certain packages. Also, Dodge offered a limited edition trim level for the SRT-8 named the 392 Appearance Package. With a limited run of 392 units, the package consisted of the addition of black trim on the hood, roof, side mirrors, and rear spoiler, with SRT branded lower side body stripes that stretched the entire side of the car. The Hemi engine received 392 engine covers, and the car rode on exclusive 20-inch split 5-spoke black vapor chrome wheels. Each car received a special serialized dash plaque showing the production build number out of 392, and was offered in 5 exterior colors. This package was offered only for the 2013 and 2014 model years. For 2015, the Charger received a facelift. The front grille was heavily revised, removing the quad headlights and replacing them with LED headlights. The rear was also updated with the rear tail light treatment similar to the short-lived Dart. The trim levels remained pretty much the same as the previous platform. You had your base SE, SE all-wheel drive, and SXT, all powered by the 3.6-liter Pentastar V6 engine. You also have the standard Charger RT and upgrade RT Road and Track package. Both vehicles are powered by the 370 horsepower 5.7-liter Hemi V8. The SRT-8 Charger was replaced with the SRT-392 with the optional RT Scat Pack trim. Both are powered by the 485 horsepower 6.4-liter Hemi, otherwise known as the 392, and also sports upgraded suspension, active exhaust, larger 20x9 wheels, and 4-piston Brembo brakes at all corners. Now, if you've seen my video on the history of the Dodge Challenger, you'll recall where I mentioned that from the introduction of this latest generation up until now, it seems that Dodge had been merely playing it safe, which is why up until now, the Charger had been merely so-so. I mean, compared to the competition at the time, the Buick LaCrosse, Chevy Impala, Chevy SS, Chrysler 300, the Charger really didn't stand out unless it was the SRT-8. Having said that, I'm quite sure Dodge's top management was tired of being lost in the crowd when they knew they were capable of leading the pack. Not only did they want to lead the pack, they wanted to obliterate the pack. So Dodge engineers put their heads together and came up with the most menacing sedan to date that would change high-performance sedans forever, the Charger SRT Hellcat. Named after the Grumman F-6F Hellcat fighter plane of World War II, the Hellcat engine, at first glance, might just look like a 392 Hemi with a blower, but it's so much more than that. First of all, the Hellcat's displacement isn't 392 cubic inches or 6.4 liters. It does, however, start with a 6.4-liter Apache BGE thick, high-nickel content engine block. But this block is fortified with thicker webbing and also with longer water jackets that go all the way down to encompass the piston even at bottom dead center. The new Hellcat displaces 6.2 liters with the bore remaining at 4.09 inches, but with a shorter 3.58-inch stroke like the 5.7-liter Hemi, with a forged steel crankshaft instead of the nodular iron version found in your standard 5.7. The connecting rods are still powdered metal, but are of a thicker casting with upgraded rod bolts. The full-floating hyper-eutectic pistons are replaced with full-floating forged pistons with oil squirters to promote cooling. The material atop the piston is also thicker for added strength in addition to built-in support ribs. Cylinder heads are the same as the 6.4 passenger car engine, but are cast in more resilient 356 T6 aluminum. With the Hellcat specific pistons, compression ratio is 9.5 to 1. The valve train is operated by a new camshaft with a .571, .536 inch lift for the intake and exhaust respectively, and a duration of 278,304 degrees. MDS is not used on any of these blower engines, but they do continue to use VCT. This bulletproof combo is topped off by a 2.4-liter twin-screw supercharger developed by IHI specifically for Chrysler. It's capable of 11.6 pounds of boost in stock form. It's equipped with integral charge coolers that keep the inlet air temps below 140 degrees Fahrenheit and is sealed for life with its own synthetic oil supply. Fed through a 92mm throttle body, it can spin up to 14,600 RPM, pumping 6 gallons of air into the engine per minute. The exhaust gas is exited via a 2 3/4-inch active exhaust system. This entire combination works together to produce a whopping 707 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque, making it the most powerful engine ever offered in a muscle car and the 5th most powerful engine ever produced in the world. The Hellcat engine was mated to the only transmission available for the Charger Hellcat, the 8HP90 8-speed automatic. Power was transferred to an independent rear suspension with a 2.62 final drive. The Hellcat Charger suspension was treated to stiffer springs and adjustable shocks, a slight upgrade from the RT Scat Pack. On the exterior, the car was given a more aggressive look that was shared with the RT Scat Pack with a new front fascia, subtle side skirts, and a deck-lid spoiler. The hood sported a scoop similar to the SRT8, but smoothed out with extraction vents on either side. The entire package rolled on 20 by 9.5-inch alloy black wheels with 275/40 Pirelli tires on all 4 corners with the optional dark bronze wheels, otherwise known as the Brass Monkeys. All 707 ponies were brought to a halt with 4-piston Brembo calipers and 13.8-inch rotors in the rear, and 6-piston Brembo brakes with massive 15.4-inch diameter rotors up front. In spite of the ridiculous horsepower boost, the Hellcat Charger exhibited exquisite road manners for daily driving. That was because of the dual key setup, a black key and a red key. The black key limited the engine to 500 horsepower, plenty for daily driving. But then there was the red key that unleashed all 707 horses. In the red key mode, the Charger Hellcat was nothing short of a blunt instrument meant to bludgeon the competition into submission. It sliced, it diced, it smashed, it destroyed. Dodge touted the Charger Hellcat being able to punish the quarter mile in 11 seconds flat with a 204 mile/hour top speed, calling it the fastest, most powerful sedan in the world. And no one can argue with that. The Charger SRT Hellcat, along with its smaller brother, the Challenger SRT Hellcat, redefined the word muscle car. If you thought your 440 six-pack could bring the heat, it's nothing compared to today's modern muscle. True, you'll never beat the nostalgia or sense of history the classic muscle cars brought us, but these new cars brought a whole nother level of muscle and performance. A level we've never seen before, and we wanted more of it. Much more. With the introduction of the Charger Hellcat, the bar was raised for performance sedans. Extremely high. In 2015, the Mercedes S-Class came close with 621 horsepower, and in 2016, the Cadillac CT-SV entered the fray with 640 horsepower. However, the Hellcat remained at the top of the horsepower heap the entire time it was in production. The introduction of the Redeye at 797 horsepower further solidified the Hellcat's dominance. We'll come back to the Redeye later. The 2016 through 2019 model years remained virtually unchanged. I mean, why mess with a good thing? Plus, Dodge was feverishly working on a successor to the Challenger Hellcat. To find out more on the Challenger, check out the video on the history of the Dodge Challenger. However, Dodge did have a couple of tricks up their sleeves for the Charger. For 2018, the SE trim was dropped and the SXT gained an SXT Plus option. The GT all-wheel drive was the next level up, which rounded out the V6 trim levels. For the V8 line, they brought back the Daytona trim level for either the 5.7 or 392 Hemi. The RT Scat Pack, SRT 392, and SRT Hellcat remained the same. While it may seem that the Charger was being ignored at this time, it's probably because the SRT crew were busy working on the debut of the 2018 Challenger Demon. This is where Dodge pulled out all stops to build a successor to the Hellcat, and boy did they ever. Beginning with the Challenger Hellcat, Dodge lightened it up by 215 pounds, tuned the suspension for drag racing, gave it super wide 315mm rubber at all four corners, and a wide body kit to match. The engine consisted of a beefed up 6.2-liter Hellcat engine block and rotating assembly, a new camshaft specific to the Demon, and a 2.7-liter blower to replace the Hellcat's 2.4-liter version that could pump out as much as 14.5 psi. The new engine produced 808 horsepower and 717 pound-feet of torque on 91 octane gas, and 840 horsepower with 770 pound-feet of torque when running race fuel. The end result produced a drag strip eating street monster that could do 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds and a 9.65 quarter mile at 140 miles an hour, lifting the front wheels at launch. What they didn't do is build a Demon version of the Charger. It made sense. The Challenger had the best chance at being light, therefore it had the best chance at being the fastest. For 2019, the all-wheel drive option switched from the GT to the SXT, and everything else remained pretty much the same with only minor tweaks. 2020 brought more of the same, with some exceptions. Let me explain. All of the lower trim levels remain pretty much the same, even the RT, which has been rock solid from the beginning. The RT Scat Pack drops the RT and is now known as just the Scat Pack. Now here's where things start to get interesting. Back in 2018, when Dodge unleashed the Challenger Demon with its wide-body kit, Dodge also offered a wide-body kit as an option for its Hellcat line, calling it the Hellcat Widebody. Well, it's safe to say that the wide-body kit looks so good on the Challenger, the Charger folk wanted one as well. So what did Dodge do for 2020? Offered it as an option for the Scat Pack Chargers, and as far as the Hellcat was concerned, every Hellcat produced in 2020 was a widebody. With the widebody package, you get special fenders stamped to accommodate the fender flares, 20x11 wheels with 305/35/20 tires, and more aggressive front and rear valances. The Hellcat took things even a step further with the extra venting on the hood with a slightly larger scoop. For 2021, the all-wheel drive option was now offered for the SXT as well as the GT. The RT remained the same, as well as the Scat Pack and Scat Pack Widebody. The Hellcat was once again offered in only the widebody configuration, with the standard body Hellcat permanently dropped. It was also given a power boost up to 717 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque. However, the biggest change came in the form of a new model, the SRT Hellcat Redeye. Now, anybody that knows their Mopars already knows that the Challenger already had a Redeye package since 2019. But in case you're not clear on the difference between a regular Hellcat and a Hellcat Redeye, listen up. The Challenger Demon was, at the time, the fastest production car Dodge had to offer, and they only ran it for one model year. However, the following year, Dodge could not let the Demon go away completely. So they took the Demon engine and dropped it in the Hellcat, 2.7-liter blower and all. The end result was a package that produced 797 horsepower and 707 pound-feet of torque. Other upgrades included a beefed-up 8 HP transmission, track-tuned suspension, and additional coolers for the engine and blower. Dodge took the already crazy Hellcat and drove it completely insane with the addition of the Demon engine. The Charger Hellcat had already redefined performance sedans at 707 horsepower, but the introduction of the Redeye took the bar and placed it on the moon. Look, I understand. There were performance sedans that were more luxurious, better handling, more economical, more practical, and more user-friendly. But there was something about the rumble of the engine, the crackle of the exhaust, the whine of the blower, the smoke of the tires, and the way the pure G-forces bear you to the back of your seat that forced this huge grin on your face and evoked feelings of euphoria that matched nothing else. Power corrupts. and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, it's no secret that Chrysler has had some major financial troubles over the years and changed ownership a few times. It's not really surprising, as many of the American auto manufacturers have been bought and sold in order to stay afloat. Many well-known brands have been cut in order to drop what they considered to be dead weight. In 1998, Chrysler was acquired by Daimler-Benz. While we got some good cars out of the merger, things didn't really work out for the two companies, and Daimler sold Chrysler in 2007 to Cerberus. Then in 2008, the recession hit, causing Chrysler to file for bankruptcy in 2009. Through a series of government loans, Chrysler emerged from the financial crisis spread pretty thin with a coalition of owners. In 2014, Chrysler was purchased by Fiat and became Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, or FCA. They continued on as a company until 2021, when FCA merged with the French-owned Peugeot SA, or PSA Group, renaming the conglomerate Stellantis. Headquartered in Amsterdam, Stellantis consists of 16 automotive brands overall, and this is where we have our current situation. Now, as far back as the 50s and early 60s, our local and national governing bodies have had a watchful eye on the automotive industries, notably concerning safety and emissions. Then, in the 1970s, we had the OPEC oil crisis, which meant that everyone became concerned about fuel mileage as well. What we ended up with instead were entities like CAFE that set the standards for fuel mileage in new vehicles. Any vehicle that doesn't meet the standards will suffer a penalty fine for each one produced. We also end up with things like carbon credits. They're given out to automotive manufacturers whenever they produce highly fuel-efficient vehicles and allow them to apply those credits to some of their not-so-fuel-efficient vehicles. Running out of those credits can result in heavy fines to the manufacturers. Which brings us back to Stellantis. They purchased Chrysler and, well, it needs work. A lot of work. It's been through bankruptcies, been sold a couple of times, so Chrysler's damaged goods, in spite of the popularity of the Hemi-powered vehicles. A company like Stellantis will come in and see where they can cut the waste and where there are opportunities to build and profit. One thing that kills profits are fines and penalties, to which I'm sure each Hellcat draws fines for each unit produced. Plus, since as of 2021, Chrysler didn't make very many hybrids to sell, so it's fair to say that when it came to carbon credits, Chrysler was deficient. Anyone knows that in order for a company to be profitable, you have to stop the hemorrhaging of money and introduce products that will hopefully make money. In other words, stop production of the Hemi and Pentastar engines in favor of something that will hopefully make money. More on that later. "2022, the production line was as such. The SXT that came standard with the 292 horsepower 3.6-liter Pentastar V6, and if you check the box for all-wheel drive, your Pentastar was upgraded to 300 horsepower along with an upgrade to 19-inch wheels over the standard 17s. Next in line was the GT, which was an upgrade from the rear-wheel drive SXT, but received 20x8-inch wheels as standard, scat packaged bodywork, and adjustable suspension. The GT also had an all-wheel drive option. Next was the RT. Once again, the RT has been the steady in this relationship, never changing, only to get better. It comes standard with the 370 horsepower 5.7-liter Hemi. The next up was the Scat Pack. Powered by the 6.1-liter 392 Hemi, it puts out 485 horsepower and comes with a ton of performance upgrades, including 20x9-inch wheels and 4-piston Brembo brakes at all corners. The Scat Pack Widebody is next up, offering the same powertrain but the obvious widebody adaptations, in addition to 20x11 wheels, 305/35 tires, and 6-piston Brembo front calipers. If the Scat Pack Widebody isn't enough for you, then there's the SRT Hellcat Widebody, sharing the same bodywork as the Scat Pack Widebody, except for the hood, which has hood vents and a larger scoop. The heart of the Hellcat is a 717 horsepower supercharged 6.2-liter Hemi. The brakes remain the same with 6-piston Brembos in front and 4-piston Brembos in rear. The SRT Hellcat Redeye Widebody comes in next with 797 horsepower. Rounding things off is Dodge's newest addition to the lineup, and that's the SRT Hellcat Widebody Jailbreak. Yes, that was definitely a mouthful to say, but this latest iteration offers quite a bit in options that allows owners to make their Hellcat Redeye more personalized and unique. You have a choice of exterior badge colors, 7 wheel choices, 5 seat colors, and a plethora of other interior and exterior color combinations. The engine is the only item you're unable to customize from the factory. It's an even higher horsepower 6.2-liter Hemi. It's been upgraded with an SRT power chiller that was first offered on the 2018 Challenger Demon. It uses the refrigerant from the AC to cool the supercharger cooling even more than that of a standard Hellcat or Hellcat Redeye. Final horsepower output was 807 and 707 pound-feet of torque. Before I go any further, one thing I missed in my last Charger video was the Charger police package. I'm sure we've all seen a version or two out on the roads lurking in the background in an effort to catch speeders. The Charger has been a staple for law enforcement all across the United States as well as countries all over the world. First introduced as the Charger police package in 2006, it was more than just a Charger with lights on top and a push bar. It was reinforced where it needed to be reinforced, built for endurance. Each police package received upgraded heavy-duty brakes, a severe-duty cooling system, police performance electronic stability control, and police performance tuned steering. The gear shift was also moved from the floor to the steering column. Power was provided by the 370 horsepower 5.7-liter Hemi that's been the staple of the Charger RT. With a top speed of 152 miles an hour, the Charger police package proved its worthiness to be in law enforcement. In 2009, Dodge expanded the powertrain by adding the 3.5-liter V6 to the lineup, with the 5.7 Hemi remaining unchanged. With the switch to the new LD platform in 2011, Dodge changed the name from the Charger police package to the Charger Pursuit package, a cool name for a new, cooler look. It also received the new 3.6-liter Pentastar V6 engine. Everything remained the same until 2014, where an optional V8 all-wheel drive version became available, along with the BR9 Big Brake package as well. Due to the COVID shutdown in 2020, Dodge only produced the rear-wheel drive V6 and all-wheel drive V8 version, both equipped with HP transmissions, the 850RE for the V6 and the 8HP70 for the V8 cars. These cars remain the same through the 2023 model year. As we roll into the 2023 model year, there was that lump in the pit of your stomach, that feeling you had as a kid when you got to go to your favorite amusement park, or got to hang out with your favorite cousins, or had an awesome summer vacation, and the end was right around the corner. You still had fun as much as you could, but with each tick of the clock, you knew the time was coming quickly to make your way to the exit, pack up your toys to leave your cousin's house, or get your boring clothes ready for school the next day. That was the feeling knowing that as the 2023 Charger model year began, that this was the end of an era, the final countdown, the last call before everything changed. The models and options remain the same as 2022 with minor changes. All trim levels remain almost the same. The SXT, GT, RT, Scat Pack, and Scat Pack Widebody were ready to go. However, the Jailbreak option was made standard on both the SRT Hellcat and the SRT Hellcat Redeye, giving customers the same option as in 2022 to tailor their SRT to their liking. But that wasn't the end of things. Dodge had one more trick up its sleeve for its final round of the V8-powered cars, the last call. With the demise of the third-generation Hemi in plain view, Dodge knew that this was the end of an era and treated it as such. To commemorate this special yet bittersweet occasion, Dodge gave us 6 special edition vehicles spread out among the Challenger and Charger. Trim packages that were mostly throwbacks to the muscle car era of the 60s and 70s. There was the Challenger Shakedown, a look back to Dodge's Challenger concept car known as Shakedown, a build based on a 1971 Challenger, but with modern underpinnings and third-gen Hemi power. There was the Challenger Black Ghost, a tribute to a legendary 1970 street racing Challenger. Then there was the Challenger SRT Demon 170. Not really a tribute to any previous muscle car, just a badass muscle car all by itself. Next, we have the Charger and Challenger Swinger. That was a throwback to the '69 Dodge Dart Swinger. Following that, the Super Bee name was brought back and given to a limited run of Scat Pack wide bodies, 500 in Plum Crazy and 500 in B5 Blue. Finally, there was the King Daytona. This special Charger was an homage to a very famous street racer back in the 60s and 70s, Big Willie Robinson. He was known for creating the Brotherhood of Street Racers with the wish of uniting all races through, you guessed it, racing. One of his most famous cars was a 1969 Charger Daytona that he named King Daytona. His wife had a similar Daytona named Queen Daytona. The demise of the Hemi was brought about by Stellantis, plain and simple. They did it to cut spending, decrease fines and penalties being assessed by agencies like CAFE and the EPA. With the end of the V8 engine from Chrysler, Stellantis has come up with an alternative: the new 6-cylinder Hurricane and electric vehicles. While the Challenger may be dead, the Charger will live on in a new generation. Although the Charger may still be dead to many of you all watching right now. Honestly, this is similar to the 1970s. The second-gen Hemi was killed because of poor fuel economy and high emissions. The Charger was transformed into a luxury car and eventually was killed itself. It came back a few years later as a front-wheel drive compact car. But you have to realize, these companies, while they will produce some of the gnarliest, coolest cars to ever lay rubber down, their bottom line is to sell cars and make money. When trends change, the companies will pivot to meet the needs. In the mid-70s, the third-gen Charger wasn't selling. There was an oil crisis, and consumers were flocking towards fuel economy and lower insurance rates. Even after switching the Charger to a luxury car, it sold even less. In 2023, car lots are chock full of Scat Packs and Hellcats that they can't even sell. Many due to high prices, but also because many are going for electric vehicles. Ford, GM, and pretty much most of the other car manufacturers already have a solid line of hybrids and electric vehicles. If Stellantis never made any moves, Chrysler would eventually die. So they have a plan to reduce their carbon footprint by 2030. So in a pretty bold move, they've introduced the Charger Daytona RT, Scat Pack, and the Charger 6-Pack. This is a bold move for any company. Reminiscent of Ford in 1994, when they abandoned the pushrod V8 for the Mustang, went purely overhead cam, and didn't look back. The first engines were disappointing. Being an owner of a 1991 5-liter Mustang that cranked out 225 horsepower, the 215 horsepower 4.6-liter in the 94 was a letdown for me. However, over time, Ford has developed that small engine into a formidable, high horsepower, fire-breathing V8 that has greatly surpassed any of our expectations. Hopefully the new Charger will be given a chance to grow and develop in the coming years. As the new Charger moves into its 8th generation, Stellantis, of course, developed a whole new car from scratch. The overall design is, well, pretty nice. I have to be honest, I like the looks of it. Even the Fratzog badge. The overall outer design is a throwback to the second-gen Charger that's hands down everyone's favorite. From the Coke bottle body shape to the squared-off front and rear fascias, this design will turn a lot of heads, and Dodge did that on purpose. I mean, of course they're going to design a car to look its best, but they went with a design that's reminiscent of the early cars. Hopefully, people will see the good looks of the car, the throwback logo, and give the new car a chance for nostalgia's sake. Don't get me wrong, it still needs work. At 5,800 plus pounds, That's a lot of weight to move along, and I can only hope Dodge engineers are addressing the issues. For late 2024, the new Charger will come as a two-door and in two models, the Daytona RT and the Daytona Scat Pack. As a two-door, it will replace the Challenger, and its electric motor supplies 496 horsepower to the rear wheels. Again, the design is not bad. It's got a funky wing in front, and it's the rear profile that wins it for me. The RT will be identified by its RT badging, and the Scat Pack will receive a new Super Bee emblem on the fender, one that's minus the exhaust pipes, of course. The Daytona Scat Pack, the next step up from the RT, will feature a 100.5 kilowatt battery, putting out a peak of 670 horsepower and 627 pound-feet of torque with all-wheel drive. Dodge is claiming a 0-60 time of 3.3 seconds and an 11.5 quarter mile. Now don't forget, while the motor only has 670 horses, it has 627 pound-feet of torque that is available instantly, which is what gets this car moving. Hopefully it'll be enough. The Scat Pack will come with available launch control and a line lock system. Inside, well, there's nothing that's a throwback in the interior, although it looks pretty nice and functional. Hopefully it will prove to be a nice driver's environment. While both models are two-door coupes for 2024, look for four-door hatchback sedans to be added to the lineup in 2025. Another addition to the 25 lineup will be the Charger 6-pack. The 6 in this equation is referring to the Hurricane, the turbocharged inline 6-cylinder engine under the hood. The base model 6-pack will have an output of 420 horsepower, while the high-output version will have 550 on tap. Now, I'd be telling a lie if I said that I wasn't a little sad seeing the last generation of Charger come to a close. The Dodge Charger is one of the most well-known vehicle names on Earth. From its humble beginnings in 1966, the Charger has been pounding the pavement, building a legacy. A legacy of upscale luxury, a legacy of muscle, a legacy of speed. The Dodge Charger has been everywhere and in almost every form. It's made a name in the streets, in our movies, on television, and I don't think there's ever been a car that's been destroyed in front of our eyes more than the Dodge Charger. But again, that's because it's been everywhere. If you didn't own one yourself, you knew someone who did, and you wished you had one. The Dodge Charger has been true to its name, Charger, defined as a horse trained for battle. It leads, in spite of the circumstances, dashing headlong into the foray, on its way to meet whatever lies ahead. In 2024, the new Charger is doing the same thing, leading the way for Dodge in a new direction for the company, dashing headlong into the foray, on its way to meet whatever lies ahead. I don't know what's in the Charger's future. I just know that whatever the goal is, it's going to have to fight for it, and fight hard. Don't disappoint us, Dodge. Stellantis, we're putting our faith in you.